Hello, and welcome to this section of the online course, where we will be knowing more about the experience from Lucia in setting up a national environmental information system. My name is Karina Cáceres, and I'm part of the ECLAC's Environment and Climate Change Statistics Unit. And here with me today is Luther Tyson. He's the Information Systems Manager at the Water Resources Management Agency. And in this video, Luther will be sharing with us key insights about the National Environmental Information System and some of the lessons learned. So, Luther, can you tell us
Yes,
a bit about the National Environmental Information System, what it is, how does it look like, and who coordinates this in San Lucia?
sure. Thank you very much. So, the National Environmental Information System, or NEIS as we call it, is a web based environmental information repository supported by 17 governmental and non governmental data and information providers. The NEIS was conceptualized after a national capacity self assessment to determine the challenges for upholding reporting requirements for various multilateral environmental agreements and was conducted by the Department, of Sustainable Development, which revealed the need for an integrated and systematic framework for information management and reporting. Uh, so funding was sourced for the NAIS from the United Nations Global Environmental Facility, and the platform was designed and developed by the consulting team of Canbean Associates and Mona Informatics. The primary objective of the NEIS is to strengthen St. Lucia's capacity to uphold its reporting and data provision obligations for the three Rio Conventions of climate change, biodiversity, and land desertification. But the platform also aligns with the Escazú Agreement requirements, which speaks to access to information, public participation, and justice in environmental matters in Latin American countries. As for what it looks like, the NEIS composes two technical components.
Okay.
So you have the front end, which is what we call the NEIS. This is let me see if I can share that and bring that up for you. So this would be the interface that most users would interact with for that system. So let's see. There you go. So this is the landing page of the NEIS. So this is where anybody can come.
Okay.
Yes. However, depending on, you have guests can come in and browse and access information, explore the reports. But also, if you are registered users, you can log in, and registered users have way more functionality. They are able to not just browse the information that's in the system, but generate reports out of them, create reports using the information, the data.
So here are the three conventions that you mentioned, right?
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
So you can search through the portal via these conventions or via indicators which would have been established. So like here, the categories. And you can basically download and download, view, whatever it is.
The different indicators. Okay.
Yes.
So this is what every user might see on the system.
Correct. Yeah. This is the page that most users will interact with. However, there's also the backend, which is strictly for the content providers or the data providers.
Okay.
And there's a link to it here, but I'll have to switch to share with you. So Microsoft and it's this one. So this is the backend. This is where the data providers would come to upload the data and information.
Okay.
For
they use the same format to upload this information so that you can generate, let's say, harmonized reports using the different data from different departments. Okay.
Correct. So there is a document which establishes the formats. So, which is right here. So everybody has access to it. There was training provided for this. So initially, all the users would have been trained in utilizing the CDFS. The backend is called the CDFS, which is the Common Data Storage Facility. And this document basically outlines the process for the different data types that the system accepts.
Uploading the
And
data, different formats.
right. So here you can see it speaks to geospatial data, tabular data, document and tagging, groups and rules, cabinets, indices. Yeah. So very comprehensive. Um,
And speaking more generally, could you share with us a bit more about who are the main actors involved in the system? Like who coordinates the
right.
function of the system, who are the main data providers, and how does this process took place from the creation of the system and where it stands now?
Yes. So okay, the primary driver, the agency that's the primary driver would be the Department of Sustainable Development. So they, a few years ago, they had conducted an assessment to determine their needs in terms of strengthening their ability to report for the various MEAs. And out of that assessment, they recognized the need for developing an integrated framework for information management and dissemination. Because one of the challenges in St. Lucia, data sharing is a huge challenge in St. Lucia, being able to access the data that you need in a timely manner.
Exactly.
So their response to that was the establishment of an integrated database system or repository where all the relevant stakeholders could submit or make their data sets available so that when anybody needs access to the data, there is no need to interact directly with the agency. They can go to the portal and
Report.
yes,
Everything is just located.
everything
Yeah.
is there, and it's you don't have to rely and wait on somebody to respond to a request because the information is already there. So that is the mentality for it. Now, the NEIS represents more than an online data repository. Like I was saying, it is intended to serve as an environmental information provision and dissemination framework for all of St. Lucia and beyond. To this
Does
end,
that mean that it also responds to, for example, national priorities, like national policies? Can
indeed,
you also use this
indeed,
data? Okay.
indeed, it's supposed to feed everybody. It's supposed to be relevant to useful to researchers, your planners, economic planners, etc. So the platform leverages web and electronic document management and database technologies to provide data and information aggregation and dissemination services to both registered and unregistered users. Data and information submissions to the platform are made by authentic sources who have the ability to determine whether their submissions are publicly accessible or would require authorizations to access. So in terms of these providers, there are 17 agencies currently who have signed a memorandum of understanding with the Department of Sustainable Development to provide data to the platform. Um, I can give you some of the agencies. So the Meteorological Services, the National Meteorological Services, the Water Resources Management Agency, the Department of Fisheries, Department of Agriculture, the Water and Sewerage Company, which is the local water utility in St. Lucia, the Central Statistics Office are
Okay.
just some of the areas. Also,
Main
we have
players. Yeah.
we have the St. Lucia National Trust. So
Okay.
these are just
And
some of, yes?
I mean, just thinking out loud, from all these different stakeholders that you mentioned and thinking about the process of providing this data to the platform, Do
Mhm.
you have any example that can help our participants of this course to understand the complexity behind this when providing the data? For example, if some of them have to provide data every month, or maybe some of them
Yes,
every week. Um,
absolutely.
Excellent.
Absolutely. So, for instance, when you look at an agency like the Forestry Department, who's also one of those agencies responsible for providing data, the information that they would provide would be, so they would provide information that are spatial, so maps of forested areas, over time to show
Okay.
either the growth or shrinkage
Shrinking.
of, yes, of forest cover, as opposed to something like water resources, where we more deal with quantitative data. So measurements of rainfall, of environmental variables like temperature and soil moisture and humidity, etc., etc. So in that case, we would be giving you a lot of tabular data, right?
Excellent.
And the system has to be able to manage all those different data sets for places, other places like not forestry, sorry, fisheries. They may want to give you images. So they would give you images of coral reefs, for instance,
Mm-hmm.
to show over time, to show the condition, either deterioration or what have you, at a particular location.
Okay.
So the system would need to be able to accept images, text documents, uh, spreadsheets, shape files, PDF
Different
documents,
formats.
reports. So, an activity that the forestry department conducts is landslides. They
Mm-hmm.
try to track land slippage over the years. They also track forest fires and that sort of thing. So, and they would compile that in a report. So that report can be made
Can be
available.
made available in the
Right,
system.
right.
So
So
it
for
seems that the system facilitates a lot of the processes and having access to all this information that is produced in the country. So what would you say, what are the three biggest achievements in St. Lucia, thanks to the development of this system? What have you observed in this process?
well, actually, for St. Lucia, the biggest achievement is the system itself,
Mm-hmm.
the very existence of the system. Because prior to this system, putting together or sourcing information would be a quite tedious and frustrating affair, because you would need to contact a particular point person within a particular department to get that information. And then just contacting them is not enough, because as everybody has their responsibilities, work responsibilities. So they may not, you may contact them, you may have that initial discussion, but you may not get that information in a timely manner.
I see.
So in order to I guess overcome that challenge, that's the NEIS is envisioned as a place where you do it once, shouldn't say once, but you upload the information, and rather than having to deal with 50 requests or 60 requests or 100 requests throughout the year, the system handles it. So you
Exactly.
just
So it saves time also for people who are providing the data, as well
correct
as
it,
for
it,
people
it
with the
exactly.
people that
So
you
it's
mentioned.
they make one submission rather than having to make 60, 100, or whatever it is. They make one submission to the portal, and then the portal handles all the requests. So
Yes,
that in itself is a win. However, um, because of our culture with data, we still have some issues, which we will talk about later. I guess in terms of the system moving forward, how do we
exactly.
intend to improve? But yes, it's not a perfect it's not a perfect system by any means. The system itself has some little bugs that we are trying to work out with the developers. But in addition to that, we still need to do some work in the commitment for uploading the data or
To keep
providing the
the system
data.
functioning. Yeah,
Right, because that is the fuel for the system. The
exactly.
system exists,
So
it's there, but it is not of any use to anyone unless it has that fuel, unless it has the data, unless it has the information. Then
that,
that's when its purpose really becomes apparent, because now it's doing what you need it to do. It's providing the service of making it easier for you to access information from forestry or fisheries or agricultural engineering, wherever it is, without having to run around trying to contact people and waiting on them to send the information to you.
yeah.
And
So
it also serves as a historical, because the information would be over periods of years. So it's, as a repository, it's a great one-stop shop, if you will.
exactly. So it makes the process more efficient and effective for
Correct.
everyone participating
Yes,
in this. And
absolutely.
now that you were talking about this challenges and keeping the fuel for this system, what would you or what have you seen as the main challenge in providing this fuel? And based on that, what could be the way forward?
Okay, so earlier on, when I was showing you the common data storage facility, I
Mm-hmm.
opened the document which specifies the formats for the data,
And how all
how
the
the data set should be,
instructions, how
all
to
the
upload
instructions.
this. Yeah.
Right. So one of the challenges is that it is not easy. It's not simple, I should say, for an agency to take their data and just upload it to the NEIS.
Mm-hmm.
There is some work involved, especially if it's data and not just a report. If it's a report, it's fine. It just has to
Just
be a
upload the
PDF
report.
document, right? You just have to upload the report. If it's an image, it's fine. It just has to be an image. You upload the image. But once it's data, once it's data and once it's, excuse me, spatial data, the system is very specific in how that data is supposed to be presented and formatted for before it can accept it.
Mm-hmm.
So because of that, there is some work involved, and because of that, what you find is persons are a bit slow or reluctant. I don't know if reluctant is the right term, but what you find happening is that submissions of those sorts tend to fall behind rather than the ones for reports. Because with a report, the report is already there. You just upload it.
I see.
Um, so that's one of the challenges. The system needs to be more friendly in terms of, or I should say, facilitating in terms of allowing the data on information providers to just upload their data sets however they have it, and probably let the system itself, um,
Work with the data.
yes, do the what we call extract, transform, load, the ETL process. So you submit your data and the system will format it the way that it needs it,
I see.
rather than the other way around. The other way around puts burden on the provider, and it gives people the impression that you're giving them more work. And nobody likes more work.
And
So
if on top of that, I mean, I think we can also recognize that capacities and human resources are,
correct, absolutely. Now,
constrained.
having said
Mhm.
that, this is the NEIS, as part of the NEIS initiative, there was a project steering committee set up by Sustainable Development, which composed a lot of the members who would be the stakeholders who would be the data providers for the system. So I was actually one of the members on the steering committee for water resources. And they also established a technical steering committee for the development process of the application. And I actually sat on that as well. So
Mhm.
the Department of Sustainable Development, one of the things that they did, which I think was the right thing to do, one of the successes was they had a lot of stakeholder engagement. There was a lot of training workshops. We would have monthly PSC meetings and updates So there was constant feedback between the stakeholders and the Department of Sustainable Development when it came to the development
Of the
of the
system.
system. However, what what we didn't well, at the end of the day, when the system became operational, what we noticed is that initially everything was okay. There was a lot of interest in the system. People were
Engagement was
uploading. Yes,
strong.
people.
Yeah.
Yeah, the interest was high. The participation was high. But as the system, as the system be I guess as people became, well, sorry, as the system started, some of the bugs in terms of especially access, we had quite a bit of issues with being able to access the system.
Mm-hmm.
That sort of caused a slowdown in the participation because what was happening is that people would try to access and they wouldn't be able to access. And every time they go on, they can't access.
They
There's an
just give.
issue. Yeah. So they kind of gave up. That
Okay.
that was one. And then outside of that, it became unsustainable for them because of the issues that you mentioned in terms of capacity, having the human resource to prepare the data for
For the
acceptance
system.
by the NEIS. Yeah, I guess for some people it was just a bit too much. Uh, so so we're in a situation now where we need to reestablish that interest. We need to make adjustments to the system to first make it a bit more, like I said, facilitating to the
Mm-hmm.
end user. And then we need to re engage with the stakeholders and stress the benefits of the system to them, because some the the initial buy-in for this was that it's not only sustainable development who benefits, because the same way sustainable development needs the information, we at Water Resources also need the information that's going in there. So there is value for the stakeholders, for everybody to share, because the information that's being shared is information that's being sought by each and every one of us.
It's a win-win situation.
It's
No?
a win-win situation.
Yeah.
So I think the potential for persons accepting it is there, but we
Mm-hmm.
do need to make it so that it's easier for them to utilize and to take advantage of it and to keep that fuel coming into the system
So that the system keeps working.
so that
And
it keeps
Luther,
working.
maybe just to finalize this very interesting conversation, you might be aware that there are other countries in the region that are
Mhm.
exploring this possibility of setting up a national environmental information system.
Yes.
So, what would be your recommendation for them? Where to start, what to do first, what not
Okay.
to do, for example?
Yes. So obviously, when you're looking at the development of a national environmental information system, the first thing you need to do is an assessment as to whether or not you actually need one. Because if you're in a country where you don't really have issues in terms of accessing the information that you have from the the sources that house them, if you can readily, then you may not necessarily need a national environmental information system, because your information flow is is strong enough to
Is working.
support your reporting needs. You don't have an issue. In the case of St. Lucia, however, it was apparent that we had that difficulty to overcome, and we needed a way to make it more convenient. So the idea of having a repository is is actually, it makes sense, and there are benefits for everybody. Um, from the get-go, of course, you would need to be able to identify your ability, and I think this is one of the areas we sort of floundered in in that we didn't recognize the um, the resources that would be needed to maintain the system
Mm-hmm.
once the project, because the system, like I said earlier, was funded through a Jeff project.
Mm-hmm.
And what happened was the system administrator was paid under that project. So when the project ended, you no longer had a system administrator. And with these sorts of systems, they cannot exist without having somebody to periodically check up on them.
Exactly.
So you need to be able to, if you going in that direction, you need to be committed in terms of the human the human and technical resources needed to keep the system operational. So that's one of the things you need to do. The other thing you need to do is, don't make the mistake that we made and have a system which places a little burden on your data providers in providing the information. Make it as easy as possible for them to submit their data. The easier it is for them to submit the data, the more likely you are that you will get it. Because as long as it's not going to cost them anything much, and they can get the benefits out of it, then they would quickly submit the data. In our case, we have the situation where data from our data providers needs to be formatted in a certain way, and it's very strict in the requirements are very strict for use with the system. So that takes them some time. Because of that, you would find the data uploads get pushed back or not prioritized from their end. So once that starts happening, then they are missing their submission deadlines, and that in itself makes the system inefficient, because when people go on the system, they expect to find the data there and it's not there. They lose faith in it. So it's more important that they submit the data so that it's there. And what needs to be done is that the system itself should have its own internal processes to transform that data that they've submitted so that it can be leveraged throughout the platform. So
Excellent.
so that's the two key things that you need to look out for first and foremost.
I think that will be very valuable for the participants of this online course. So, and I think with that, we can finish and close this extremely informative video. Thank you very much for your time, Luther. And I hope that the region, and I'm sure that the region will benefit from this experience and the insights you have shared.
Yes, it's definitely a work in progress. It's definitely something that we need to keep at it. And with all IT implementations, that's what you find. You'll find no IT implementation gets it 100% right out of the box. We start from somewhere and then we build upon it until we have
Exactly.
what we have today.
Exactly. Work in progress.
Correct.
Thank you very much.
All
And
right. You
yeah,
take care.
you too.